So thanks again for joining us. We've been infiltrated by a pile of Jaxies today. It's cold outside, so we've got some company.
In our dog-free podcast.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a dog-free room. It did not last.
Just the day.
So we're here today to talk about Atlas, which I feel is a topic that always comes up, but diving in a little bit more. I think people see lots on Instagram and they see bits of pieces on Honest Hounds, but I thought maybe with all the talk on social media of different training approaches and things like that, it can often feel very confusing, completely saturated.
It's a minefield.
It is a minefield.
I guess a lot of our clients are going, well, I've done that. I've done the balance training. I've done the posit. I've done the force free. What else can I do?
Yes. And I think it's really interesting to kind of focus that on a lens of a particular dog. And obviously, all dogs are different. But I think that actually Atlas's journey has kind of taught a lot that always seems to resonate with quite a few people. So, how far back should we go? Where do we begin?
Plus, we begin at the beginning, and the beginning changed because when I first spoke to you in May 2022,
Yep.
24 was last year, 23.
Who are we?
Yeah. 23. When I first spoke to you, you said that his behaviours changed about 10 months of age.
Yes.
And then as we get to know each other, you said actually it was a bit earlier. And then as we got to know each other more, you said it was a bit earlier. And then eventually you went, do you know, the very first day I met him, he was different, which was when he was like 6 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, about 5.5 weeks.
Before you even picked him up, you picked him out of the litter as being a little bit of a loner character.
Yeah, a bit aloof. Yeah, which is very interesting. And it wasn't me lying. I wasn't like, haha, we'll sneakily tell her later dates. It was that I hadn't been able to see or decode anything. And then the more that you kind of taught me and the more I learned, the more I was like, oh boy. What's that? It was bad.
A really good point to say that if you now go back in time and pick that list with the knowledge that you have, you still wouldn't have the same outcome. So it's not about blaming that individual or that difference.
Yeah.
It's about the wrong person for the wrong dog at the wrong time. So it's that kind of trifecta, a perfect storm. You've got just an inexperienced person with a tricky dog. So he would have had a different outcome if you'd known. But because he was a sensitive character and a loner and not necessarily a cuddly dog, he wasn't this from the start, was he?
No, and I think I didn't have any comparison. So it was really confusing for me because this is sold as Velcro. So part of the reason I got the breed was I wanted a cuddly dog. That is exactly, I wanted a dog that could do the outside stuff, but then also would do this and be like lovey dunza. And I think it was just, we didn't have any comparison. He was the first puppy. He was our first dog. And it was like, well, maybe he'll just grow into it. Oh, it's because he's so busy and he's into puppy stuff and he's just doing that. And then obviously
The internet tells you that it's fine. He'll outgrow it.
yeah, he'll outgrow it. Yeah, the biting's just a stage. He'll outgrow that. And obviously that did not happen.
So you reached 2, but you'd got a behaviorist when he was 5 months.
Yeah, so he was, maybe even a lot bit earlier than
That's quite a big thing to do because most people don't start with a behaviorist; they start with a trainer. So why did you go like straight in deep end?
That's a good question. So we had already had a trainer. We did puppy classes. I'd made sure I'd enrolled in them right from the beginning.
Oh, I didn't know about puppy class.
Oh, okay. Well, we excelled in puppy classes. We actually got promoted to the next puppy class because obviously I'd done all my homework and done everything that she was going to teach us.
Did you have a spreadsheet for all the training things?
So I ticked on my spreadsheet.
Socializing.
Yeah. Well, no, that wasn't on my spreadsheet.
Nothing
I was supposed to meet 100 dogs before, but that could be from afar. So I was ticking those suckers off if they were across the street. It's like, yeah, we saw it. Totally counts. Do you not remember it was during COVID as well? So we'd moved, and I actually felt a huge amount of stress with that. So I'm reading this book, and it says to me 100 dogs or people between this time frame, and I'm going, I can't go outside, and I'm a rule follower, so I stuck to everything. So I was getting my one bit of exercise in a day and using that to walk him, but there weren't many people out. We'd moved to a brand new area. We didn't know anyone. And so I'm feeling this immense pressure that I'm going to ruin my dog if I don't tick these things off. But how am I going to do this when everything is closed? We can't go to pubs.
Wow.
So, I mean, the poor dog was living already in a state of increased anxiety. But yeah, the puppy classes were great. We got promoted to the intermediate class because we were doing, so he could do all of the trainy bits. But it didn't focus on anything helpful. It didn't focus on relationship. She wasn't teaching me to muzzle train my dog or And actually, there was one instance on the last session where she said, "Oh, should we let them all have a bit of a party together to celebrate?" And I was like, "Oh, yay, he needs friends." Obviously, because he'd been pulled into the intermediate class, it was tiny little Atlas, probably the size of Nembu, with fully grown dogs, essentially. So they all got let off lead, and he was doing it well. He was like, "Whoa!" And it was fun at first, and then it was a bit like, "Oh my God." And then he got literally flipped in the air by this big fat lab. And she's going, "Oh, isn't it nice?" I'm like, "Okay, sure." So yeah, we'd done all that, and I was not very impressed. I kind of ticked the puppy training off in my head and went, "Well, that's done." And then, okay, well, there's enough on YouTube. I'll just do my own thing, right? I'll just go out and I can teach him to sit. There's actually quite a famous Vizsla that's on YouTube, so I was watching all of them and kind of going, "Okay, well, we seem to be in line with that. We seem to be right with this." Totally missing the mark. Like, yeah, we had some great obedience, but my dog had literally no actual relationship with us. And I was missing red flags daily. Looking back, I just want to scream at myself.
You must have seen it. I mean, most people don't get a behaviorist at 4 or 5 months. Like that, even from me, normally about sort of, they notice problems at 6 months, they wait a few months to see what happens, then 8 months is normally the call, like, okay, I'm in trouble. So, you were early.
Well, I think it was the biting that was overwhelming. And so what actually happened is we were down at my dad's. I used to race, obviously, so we were down at a race. It'd obviously been way too much for him, but all we saw was a puppy that was out and about. Everyone wanted to say hi to him. We're so proud of him. It's like, yeah, of course you to say hi. And
So you were racing and Sean was introducing the puppy to everybody.
Sean was like, middle of the race village. Yeah, sure, you can. Oh, yeah, he's a person. Yeah, he is cute, isn't he? And then I would spot them on course and be like, hi. So he'd get like obviously a surge of like, that's my mum, but why is she leaving? And then I'd be off again into the hills. And so by the end of maybe 6 hours later, he was obviously cooked and way too much for a poor little puppy brain. And we had a crate set up in our van at the time. And so what we used to do is we'd put him in the van and then take his harness and his collar off while he was in the crate, because I was also terrified that he would get his collar stuck on the crate or something would happen. And it was as Sean reached into the crate to take the harness off, he just went, no, and just clamped onto his hand.
And what age was that?
About 5 months.
Wow.
5 months.
That's young for that level of aggression.
Yes. And so
That was a clear, like, no, don't do that.
do that. Absolutely don't do that. And looking back now, there had definitely been things that we'd missed, more subtle ways
What
to
did you
communicate.
say as then? So when you called the behaviorist, what did you...
So I actually took to Facebook first, because we all do. So I went to Vizsla UK or whatever the popular Facebook group is, and I said, oh, I was actually like beside myself. But because it happened to Sean's really good at like, let's just calm it down. It's fine. He's tired. It's this, it's that. He's a puppy. He's overstimulated, yada, yada, yada. And so I'm like, okay, not really convinced, but we'll kind of see. And then we went back to my dad's house, and us being kind of like, basically we had a crate that was in the car, but it was all tethered down, and then we didn't have space for another crate. So we'd kind of been like, oh, he'll be tired. We'll put a bed in our room and he'll just sleep in our room. He did not sleep. He was unable to self-regulate. And so we were getting increasingly frustrated that night. So Sean had been bitten. We'd kind of played it down. And then we were in bed trying to sleep, and he's like jumping on the bed, jumping off the bed, like being an absolute goon. And I was like, Atlas, like, we need to go to sleep. So I was like, come on, off you get the bed. And he kind of jumped off. And looking back now, I should have read him and I didn't. And I went to pat the bed. So I went, come on, come and lay here. And he just went clamp.
That was the same day.
Same day.
Oh, wow.
And so that was it. I was then in panic.
He's starting to get like really like, what if yeah, this is we sit there.
Yeah. And so that was it. So I was up all night. I didn't sleep a wink at all. And so that between, I don't know, 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. when I eventually went off, I'm just going to go downstairs, I had doom scrolled. I had posted in every Facebook group I could think of. And I actually got some replies. And so everything that was coming back from that was, oh, he's a puppy, he'll grow out of it. Or he just needs to be dominated. You just need to punish him and show him who's boss. And my gut was just squirming. And I was like, you should not be bitten by your dog. And so I had a friend a family friend who had worked with this person. So she sent me her Facebook group through. And I basically sent her a message and said, this is what's happened. And she suggested that we had a Zoom. And so booked a Zoom with her. And then that was obviously the first. That's not really official. That's a behaviorist. Yeah. So we did.
And her recommendations, because I've watched that Zoom because it was recorded.
Yes.
So her recommendations were to leave when he was upset. So if he's on the bed, you put to move out of the way.
Yeah.
If he's growling at you, you have to leave the situation. If he's possessing something, you leave him alone. So all about him going, like, de-escalating the situation by you leaving, basically.
And almost kind of, if you've got him to that point, you failed. So like if you're seeing that behavior, well, you have not managed this
situation to get out of this.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and just like, there were just something, I mean, even at the time, I didn't know a lot at the time. And looking back, I'm always like, oh my goodness. But even at the time, you can hear, like, I'm asking all these questions, going, this doesn't feel right. I'm really not sure. But what about this? But surely this is not normal puppy behavior. And it was all kind of really downplayed and really kind of like, no, it'll be fine. He just needs to get past this phase, right? So, he'll grow out of it. He's a puppy. He's just exploring with his mouth and all these kind of things. Whereas actually what she should have been going was, you're dealing with some pretty severe aggression in a dog that should probably not be doing that.
So it sounds to me like she didn't recognize that it was as bad as it was.
Yeah.
I remember watching it with you last year and being quite distressed because Sean's behind you. So you're on the floor and Sean's behind you. And he's bending down, kissing Atlas, touching Atlas, and Atlas has got a chew
On the sofa.
And only a month later, the same scenario played out, but that ended with the hospitalization of Sean.
Yeah.
And she saw this in this Zoom because she was there with you live.
Yeah.
And at no point did she say, this dog who is resource guarding is likely to escalate. And please be very aware that he shouldn't be on the bed, he shouldn't be on the couch if these are places that he's likely to be growling at you.
Yeah. And I guess this is a good time to kind of flip this back to you and go, okay, well, you've been doing this a very long time. You've seen kind of many a trainer, I'm sure, come through. And what do you think is, where have we got to where someone that is kind of claiming to be a behaviorist with all these letters after their name can be missing something that even now I feel like I would be able to see and go, oh, wow, we really need to scale back and manage that?
Well, first of all, I think aggression in dogs, well, in animals. I mean, I'm working with a local prison here. It's a very niche area to work with aggression, whether it's people, dogs, whatever. So not every trainer behaviorist is going to have the experience. And even if they have all the theory, I don't think that's much compared to living with these dogs.
Yeah.
And I didn't know at the time. Thanks to you, I know now because I'm speaking to these trainers. When you're a trainer, you tend to be in your own little world, and it's difficult to speak to people who, if they're not aligned with how you see things, or if they're not happy to communicate, because a lot of them are worried about passing on knowledge, or whatever, for whatever reason, it can be isolating. And now that the world's opening up a little bit with this, and people are starting to mentor, and there's like social media is fantastic. In the last 5 years, there's so much stuff on social media and people showing their work. So I think I'm starting to see now that, and I'm speaking to trainers, that they're not taking these dogs in. So it's very easy to say to people what to do, but if you're not doing it yourself, and if you're not dealing with hundreds of dogs in your house, how do you know what the difference between a dog that's showing aggression and a dog that's obsessed and getting dopamine for being aggressive? They're very different things. So one aggressive puppy is not the same as an Atlas aggressive puppy.
And I guess that's where,
because he became a little bit obsessed, with when you drop tissues and when you were, so he became like looking for opportunities too, rather than, oh, I'm feeling worried and panicked and scared, this is going to happen, I've got the only resort I can do now is aggression. He was actively seeking out instances of where he could aggress, which is very different, and no books can tell you that, no theory, certificate can show you how to deal with that.
no. And I think for your average owner, or maybe even your average trainer, not really understanding that a pet dog would get to that
was wanting to even consider behaving like that.
And worth adding that this is not a dog that's been abused. He's not been locked up in a kennel for the first amount of his life.
I think if that was the one thing I could change about the British public, it would be for them to understand our Western, really the way we see dogs. We just assume that anything that's behaving badly is being treated badly. And if you treated Atlas in any way badly, the only thing you did was maybe love him too much and be a bit ignorant of social status.
Yeah.
And pandering to him. So he's going, I'm not doing that. And you're going, okay. And if we did that to a child, we're going to raise an absolute brat.
Yeah.
But if we have that across the board and we say that to other people with dogs that have got sensitivities or true anxiety. And so he was showing anxiety when I got Atlas, but I don't think it's come from anxiety. I think it's come from control, but it's become anxious because he's getting very mixed signals, and we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
But yeah, so we can't say one thing and go, and that's what everybody wants. They want, well, it worked for you, so therefore I'll do it too. Whereas a tailored approach takes into consideration the dog's status, your status, so many things, all the things. There's so many parts to it. So it isn't black, it was never going to be black and white, and that's very difficult to
understand and unpick. So if we've got some trainers listening, I guess this is a really good question then, because I feel like aggression is probably one of the biggest things that people need to refer outward. So if I'm a trainer and I'm listening to this and I've got a dog that's maybe showing some signs of aggression or resource guarding or things that I'm kind of thinking, this is interesting. What is the point? What are you seeing where you're going, actually, no, this is the bit where you need to be passing this on to someone that has got this experience? At what level does it need kind of shifting and someone else kind of tagging in and going, yeah, let me give you some help with this?
I think it depends on the age. So, a young dog of Atlas's age where he was, put in a high status situation and prone to already resource guarding and being possessive. That's a lot of red flags. And an experienced owner. And that's like, okay, well, we need a little bit of, help.
Pretty like finger.
Yeah. And so even like, I've had dogs that are tricky, and with my experience, I still have to kind of problem solve what's going to work best with this dog. So yeah, I think it's so difficult to see. For me, the biting from a young age with Atlas is a big one. So 5 months, a full-blown bite is big. Normally it's testing. What can I do? What can I do? Can I get away with this? We have quite a lot of clients on Honest Hounds that are saying that their dog's anxious.
Yes.
And then the vet may have even diagnosed anxiety. But at the same time, you see video of the dog going, I'm going to control the situation, I'm bouncing about. So, if something's going to be generalized anxiety, that dog should be generalizing anxiety all the time. It shouldn't be going, I'm also going to demonstrate control. And it also shouldn't be going, I'm going to give body language of something that's going to, I'll let everybody know that I'm peacocking, right? I'm here and I will be marking. I'm also anxious. It doesn't work.
It's very complete.
So yeah, it's the body language, it's the human that the dog's with, it's the age of the dog, what age that he started to show this level of aggression, I think, for me. So I think that's why Atlas stands out, because it was so young. But then you still hadn't registered that as a proper bite.
No, because everyone was telling me that he was going to grow out of it.
Just mouthing. So your brain still said, because you told me it was 10 months that he did his first bite.
Yeah.
Even though that
Just he was standing over us. Hello, Rose. Like, what did you say about social status and testing? Yes. Yeah, and I think it's that really tricky thing where, looking back, I absolutely knew it wasn't right, but did I want to admit that the puppy that we had, like, we'd been counting down for years for this dog, like, actually could not wait to have our first dog. We'd been talking about it since we were like 14 years old.
So you would have had preconceptions of what the dog's going to be like and what your relationship's going to be like already. And
awful from
but designed by Hollywood too, probably. Oh, and this is how dogs are.
Absolutely. We were converting a van, which we then had to sell because we couldn't have an aggressive dog sleeping in a van with us. But yeah, we were going to go hiking and he'd then sleep in the van with us afterwards and all this great stuff. Good boys. So when I come good, but there's no room at the end. Yeah, and so it was so much more palpable for us to go, oh, he'll grow out of it. I'll believe Tim84 on Facebook because he's telling me this that I really want to believe, even though my gut is screaming, yeah, this is not right. But I guess, so we did reach out to that behaviorist, and the advice was avoid as much as you can, manage situations as much as you can, and just kind of pray that he'll grow out of it. if we are thinking about kind of generalizing to a atypical dog, why is that not going to work as an approach?
Well, how many different methods are there for dealing with dogs? You've got, he's growled at you, you need to correct him and let him know that you're the boss. You've got ignore it because if you do anything, you might ruin your relationship. So opposite ends of the spectrum. And they're not taking into account the human, the environment, the history, the personality, archetype of the dog. So many bits that we need to know first. So when I'm looking, I mean, it's terrible to say, but I can see when people arrive who've got a residential about to happen in a few weeks' time, and I can see when they arrive immediately within 3 seconds the relationship between the dog and the human. But I don't know what kind of personality he is. So the tests I run with that dog is, who are you? I'm the tester, and I'm going to push some buttons. I want to know who you are, how you deal with this. And, can I increase your resilience? And how do you interact with things in different environments, not just the same? So when a dog gets a diagnosis for me from a vet of being anxious or, what do they call it now? Fear aggressive, that's just like not a thing.
So we have got an episode on that already, so you can go check it out.
So before they would get a diagnosis like that, really, I think a dog should be seen outside of the home environment. And I don't just mean see it on the street. I mean, take the dog out of the whole environment, put it into a different environment, and how does it cope? Because actually what I'm seeing is that they become very different when they're in a different situation and they're allowed just to woosah, be around dogs, and learn. So it's almost like you need to unlock the personality and the character of that dog, but you can only do that outside of I know it's not possible for every dog to have that done, but perhaps it should be. Perhaps trainers should be going, let's have the ability to take this dog away.
I think it's that middle ground, isn't it? Because there are a lot of trainers that go, yeah, I'll take your dog for you. It can live with me for 2 weeks or a month, and then I'll hand it back to you and job's a good one. Whereas actually, there has to be a middle ground because we have to get that human on board as well. There's no way if you'd taken Atlas for a month and then delivered him back to me that he would have changed because it was us that needed that shift. And so we have to find this space to give the dog the space away from the human, but also empower the human to really see what's going on.
And obviously, with that point in my career, if you've met me 10 years ago, I might not have been able to help you in Atlas. And it wasn't about my dog skills that I recognise by your words. And I recognise, when we're on the calls with people, there's words that they use, certain phrases that they say that makes me go, this is what's going to have to happen to get the dog help, because actually dog's probably fine.
Yeah.
It's the situation, it's the relationship, it's how the dog is expected to behave. What was the wording? It
was a very cute little dream.
So what was the wording today? It was help me get my dog to change. Get my dog to behave this way. And actually, it's not really the dog that needs to change. It's the environment the dog's in.
I mean, full stop.
Yeah. As a dog, he finds himself in a situation, he then has to adapt that situation. But the reality is that when these dogs are put in different situations, they're not like humans. They don't carry the baggage. And so Atlas had a huge transition because he went, well, I mean, I guess we should talk about the first time you called me. And we had a conversation and I said, this is pretty bad. And in a lot of time, people don't recognize how bad it is because we get so normalized.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place. So if we kind of go back to that first trainer and that first advice. So the advice that I was given was avoid it, manage it. And I tried so very hard to do that. I was really putting in all the effort that I could, to the point that I actually remember we went for a hike once, up in the hills, and he was on a long line, and one of the real things that we had a problem with is when the fun ended, he did not want to go back in the car. And so we'd have a lovely walk, he'd be his best self, we'd all be like, yay, this is amazing, and then you'd get to the car and it would be like brakes on, absolutely not. And so I'd said that to her, and her suggestion was, to wait it out and just wait for him to be ready to get him. So you can offer some food, you can put food in the car, and then just wait and he'll just jump in. So we're like, oh, that makes sense. Except when we actually then put that into practice, and he went, yeah, nothing you offer here food-wise is more interesting than this environment. And so I'd kind of asked all the questions, and she was like, well, just wait, he'll get bored. and just tether him to your car. And so we had him all along line, tethered to our car, and we're like trying to coax him to get into the boot. And he's like, I absolutely am not getting in that boot. And now, actually, if you come near me, I'm going to also be outwardly aggressive. And so,
Because he loved that word.
because he planned it worked. So you then have him tethered to the boot. I can't untether him because I can't get close enough to untether the lead because he's then trying to attack us.
So he lives there now.
So we live there now. So we just went and sat in the front of the car, and Sean was there. So then obviously we're then arguing about the fact the hot dog is tethered in the hills to the back of the car. And then, in the most just you couldn't write it way possible, then a herd of wild ponies start coming up to the car. Like my aggressive freestyle this I can new level of just styling this point. It burst in comical fashion. And so it was just like this cannot be life. This cannot be like and I sat there and I was like I am a teacher by trade. There is no way that this is a situation that would play out in my classroom. Like, I wouldn't just be sat there like, sure, yeah, whenever you're ready, like, don't mind me. Oh, you don't want to do maths? It's fine. Just crack on until you're good to go. Like, it's just sat there going, this cannot be right. But then I'd kind of go back to her and she'd be like, oh, well, we just need to tweak some things. We just need a bit more time. Just needs to mature a little bit. And the minute he's got a puppy brain that's not mature enough to understand these things. And I'm kind of going, well, you must be the expert because I've not worked with dogs and you have.
And now you've raised another puppy. Are they mature enough at 5-6 months to be able to cope with consequences of action?
Oh, and I'm being like held accountable to just move into a vehicle. Like I just, yeah.
Somebody has to parent. Somebody has to parent, and the consequences don't have to be that you batter the dog or that you do anything awful to the dog. It can literally just be. Well, I think that for the car first situation like that, people often try and bribe the dog.
Oh yeah.
And so the dog's like, well, I can choose.
Yeah.
And actually what we need to do is not make it a big deal, but we can go, oh, you got into the car, I will choose to reward you.
Yes.
This is great. But yeah, it's very interesting how people kind of create this situation. The dog then, it doesn't really care about the car, but he does care about the control thing. And Atlas loves that. That's his intrinsic motivation. Can I be in control? And that's a difficult one at your stage then to manipulate. Not so much now you understand like how to make it his idea.
I don't think I had the capacity then to like dogs are our companions, right? They do things.
They want to do everything we want
to. So we had a lovely walk. We've been out for 2 hours. Like, what? Just I've asked you to do a thing. It's not a big deal. There's lots of snacks in the car. But I think
that he was in pain.
Maybe he was in pain. He was not in pain. I think there's a really good question there in that we've kind of talked about the kind of different approaches and kind of moving through things. But by me trying to avoid that and manage it, I was still failing and I was still seeing that aggression. So for someone that's maybe listening going, okay, well, why didn't that work? Why was that detrimental to his progress if I'm trying to avoid, but still having those slip ups where he still gets to exhibit?
And also as a type A personality, you feel like you're failing the whole time, not getting it right.
Absolute failure.
Yeah. The two of you are like this. So he's not even a proper teenager at this point.
No. I think we're like 6 or 7 months at that stage.
Yeah. Like the confusion that he must have been going through with you being so stressed and then him going, I'm controlling this. And also now I can control you with aggression because, my signals haven't worked so far, but the aggression that I'm going to throw at you, that's going to work. Oh, that seems to work. You can get her to back up. Good, okay, I'll use that more. So yeah, your avoidance strategy, it sounds great on paper.
It's a lot harder than it looks. Life's in a way that wild ponies can only teach you.
Absolutely. And these little things that people tell us that doesn't help with the real life stuff, it does sound great to be able to go, well, just, wait it out. It sounds like nice and force free and it's lovely. But if you're in an emergency situation where he was in danger, how are you going to pick up your 5-month-old puppy and put him in the car and drive off?
And I couldn't. I had to shoo the horses away so that there wasn't an altercation there.
So I guess the big thing that we're missing, like obviously we released the partnership program this week, project this week. We are, really trying to drill home that it's not about training drills, because this point he'd been upped in training classes. He knew how to do the training.
out with the car. We could do an us and a down and everything. It was just like, he's like in that moment going, no, no, no.
Yeah. And you've got lots of different ways to look at it. Maybe he was scared of the car. Maybe he had a bad experience with the car. Maybe he was sore, didn't want it picked up. So there's so many things that they could be around that. And so waiting out seems like the most logical thing because it means
Letting it to be his idea and you're doing it with him. Yeah.
so yeah, it's a nice selling point. But as you just said, real life's in a way that you can never predict. You know, like recently, the foster dog that you had got the stick stuck in his mouth.
That was bad.
And you've not had him long enough to work on opening his gums and
Well, especially not under a high panic situation, which he was. He just went into absolute meltdown.
yeah. And you know, we don't have enough time to proof him. We've only had him for a month or something, so there's not enough time to go, right, I need to spend the time it's going to take to open your mouth and look at your gums and so on. So when there's an emergency like that, and we don't know if he's like life or death. It's just, you know, you've got a stick stuck in his mouth. He's in panic mode. He's trying to bite you. What do you do in that situation? You can't have fear with an animal. You can't have that. So it was a really good example to you because you went into.
It's some healthy fear though. You shouldn't just be putting your hands into the.
No, absolutely. I didn't. Did I? I did, but I did.
I got munched. Don't do that.
So yeah, in a stress state, you're just good. Doesn't matter if he bites me.
Yeah.
Whereas it does matter to me because but the most important thing is that he remains calm, I remain calm, and I can't help him if I'm injured. Right? That's like your gas mask arm, you're in the flame.
And I think my brain went to a space where, and it's a good lesson for, I guess, anyone, but because Atlas is less bitey when he's in pain, he seems to have this weird, like, okay, no, you're helping me, so I'll scale down the aggression. And so that kind of pattern matched to, or maybe this will be the same. Oh, well, I've got to give it a go. But it's not good. No points for me.
So yeah, he's and this little guy, you know, he's just coming up to a year old, and he's not had anyone put that practice in to be able to help him that way. And he's been taught again that bite inhibition, that's like the window. You know, if I want to bite, I bite. If you're doing something that I don't like, I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah.
And he was in pain, but just because you're in pain doesn't mean you have to bite.
Yeah. Well, I really was trying to help.
So I guess the point in telling you this is the difference between our personalities at that point. I'm experienced. So I came in with it, right, this is what I'm going to do to restrain him and help him.
Yeah.
From a distance, I used another stick, I used a walking stick to help open his mouth and retrieve that, all while holding him very firmly, and you had the slip lead. So we're doing calm mitigation to help the bigger picture. Yeah, if you were outside looking into that, you'd be going, that woman's strangling outside and she's forcing his mouth open with a stick. And the personality type comes from me having lots of experience, being calm about it and thinking. And yours is, I've been bitten before. I don't know how to handle this, so this is new.
I'm not done this yet.
He's distressed, which is upsetting. It's emotional, isn't it? I think that's a really good point to mention, that our personality types affect the dog.
Mm-hmm. I was not helpful in that moment.
No.
Well, I called you, which is the slightest thing I could do.
So, and when we're faced with difficulties, we have to be considering the human element as well and what we're doing. And the first call that I had with you was, I knew immediately that you were an inexperienced person dealing with a very experienced dog in biting. He's 2 years old at this point, and he's learned that this is how life goes, but he's also in a state of chronic stress. How did I know that he was in a state of chronic stress? By what you were telling me. There's not a single day that passed that he wasn't either growling at something.
Oh God, there wasn't like 10 minutes that passed that he wasn't growling at something.
And he was holding his body tense. He wouldn't let anybody touch his you know. So, and in a case of emergency, you couldn't touch anything. Like literally, I met him and leaned over him again, testing. And you were all holding your breath.
And I ran back in the car. Oh, but
I would you want to touch the dog, because he should be able to be touched. And now you're with me with that yeah, dogs should be. For us to help them, they need to be able to be. And he's not a great example. You know, he couldn't be touched like this just a few months ago. And for us to help them as individuals and have a healthy, long life, we have to be able to touch them. And we don't have to do that by force, but we do have to help find a way for them to go, okay, this is all right. And how do we get rid of that chronic stress? How do we do that?
well, before we do that, we were missing a part of the journey, which is very important because that's where we need to go back again. So we'll go back in time. So avoidance and management didn't work, and we were trying so hard, but life happened. We were getting great kind of stints where we'd get like 2 or 3 days or a week of nothing. But we were still having incidences, we were still having things and bites, and I'm kind of going, do you know what, my gut is telling me that this is not changing his behavior, and actually he's still waiting, like we're just managing things really well until we don't, and
spring.
we can't manage this forever. And so
Remember the bite incident with the hospitalization? Because that's when.
which one? The one with Sean?
Yeah, before you called the balance trainer.
Okay. So yeah, so we had a really bad bite where good boy, there's no space. Basically Sean had come home for lunch to see his dog because he had to not work from home and he missed him. And so he'd come home and he was sat on the sofa. Atlas was sat on the sofa next to him because no one had mentioned that. By this point, no one had suggested muscle training. No one had suggested that maybe getting off the sofa would be a good idea. And no one had really explained resource guarding. That sounds really stupid, but the books that we read mentioned resource guarding of like high value chews. But not just really getting on the high value else, which we're still. Nothing said that it's a dog could guard space. Nothing said that a dog was guard like a crate.
So that's really interesting for us because to me, and I've written on obviously quite a lot around this and possession, obsession, and so on. But that's such a natural behavior. Like resource guarding's very natural. Puppies will do it,
Yeah.
and they almost need to learn how to share and how to coexist as they grow up. So I've raised litters of puppies. In fact, baby's litter I raised until they were all a year old, and about 12 weeks of age, they had some real fights. But of course, they don't have any power. They just got these little arms. That's hilarious. But also, we kind of want to get involved, but you kind of go, what if I wasn't here? I need them to I don't want to be part of that equation where they need a human to always getting involved.
Yeah.
And then they developed ritualized aggression, which was because we've learned what happens and who you are in relation to me. And ritualized aggression is like the mock fight. So we've been there, we've had a fight before, and now we're just going to verbalize and give the posturing.
Yeah.
And then, okay, fine, you want it more than me. So they never fought after that age when I let them, like a couple of weeks. They did. And puppies don't get to do that because they get separated from the litter mates at 8 weeks or so. And they were around 3 or 4 months when they started doing the fights. And then 5, 6 months they get power in their jaw that could do damage. But they didn't ever have any fights. I've got no scars. Baby only has an Atlas scar. But no scars on any of the puppies from their fights when they were puppies. Because it's just, they've not got any real power, but they've got all the attitude. So I think that resource guarding needs to be made a bigger deal of because it's very normal. And who's going to teach them how to share? Because the humans don't know how to. We've got inexperienced humans raising dogs that don't know how to teach them.
Yes, and it seems to generally be specific to food, and so it's like it's everything, right? We can be guarding everything.
Yeah.
We need those lessons across the board, but the opportunities too. So yeah, so he'd come home from work. He was sat eating some food on the sofa, and he was giving Atlas bits of his sandwich. And so he thought that Atlas had eaten it, but what he'd actually done is laid on top of it, and it was under his belly while he's laying on the sofa. So we've got height, we've got food, we've got guarding.
Okay, so it's probably then at the start, if I haven't heard this before, so this is probably the start of him going, I can now find things to possess because this makes me feel good.
Yeah.
That's really hard to get your head around, and a lot of trainers won't even have experienced this, where a dog's gone from resource guarding to possession obsession. Because that's... I'm going to say his breed-specific needs probably weren't being met at that age, and he's going to find things that are going to dopamine release because his endorphins weren't where they are now.
Yeah, because we were sticking to the 5 minutes of exercise per month of age, remember? So we're 7 months at this point, so we're getting 35 minutes of exercise a day.
Okay.
So we'll just go past that. I do not recommend.
Need more than that.
And that was not me, like, not wanting to meet those needs. I would literally count it to the minute and then be like...
Because you were fearful of...
he would get joint issues.
Over-exercising, yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted him to have a long, happy life, which is ironic because he almost didn't make it past 2. So
I have written about that as well, that a lot of dogs, people are so worried about them. I don't want to neuter them, it'll reduce their lifespan by a year.
Yeah.
But actually, the ages that we're getting them as 2, and then we're having to choose to euthanize anyway. So yeah, I'm not pro or anti neutering. I think there's a time and space. I don't think we're doing enough understanding before we do these things.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a great webinar on that on Honest Hounds. Baby, good girl. She's like, what can I do? Yeah, so Sean let down to give him a kiss as he was leaving, and as he kissed Atlas on the head, Atlas just went, absolutely not. And that was our first sustained attack. So that was not a one and done.
Really?
I had to like wreck Atlas off of Sean. So that was not fun. Did not enjoy. Do not recommend. And it was
Not a warning then. That's a
that was a no.
You don't know your place.
You don't
You don't know what you're doing it.
Yeah. And so off we went to hospital, and I rang Visitor Welfare, and when I did not know what to do, we don't know what to do. I didn't want to go back to the other trainer because I really felt like this was a good example that it wasn't working. And so they kind of gave me some great advice, and then I went off and did some research, and I found a trainer who was the total opposite side of the coin. So in my head I went, well, this avoidance management isn't working. So there's quite a lot of flashy stuff on Instagram now, and this side of things, it makes sense that we're not showing him that it's wrong. So that was what I was hearing a lot of. We need to correct it so that he understands that it's a behavior that he can't do. And I kind of went, okay, well, that makes sense because I've been saying to him, yeah, you can do this. So now we need to make it clear that no, you can't do this. Mentioned muzzle training, which was brilliant. So we then added the muzzle in, not enough, but we did start training it. And it was very much correct him when he bites. So I think now that I know what I know, it was not any of the, like, we weren't focusing on reducing stress. We weren't focusing on getting his endorphins up. We weren't looking at his diet or his sleep or anything like that. We were just...
It wasn't sleeping, was he?
He wasn't. He was on edge constantly. And it's so interesting now to look back on. So he only ever slept curled in like the tightest ball, like he was trying to protect his whole body from us. And so I'd never see him laying on his side. I'd never see him stretch. I'd never see him shake off. It was like he was just like constantly. And if you moved near his bed, it would be like, what are you doing? Like, do I need to kind of come to action here?
So it's almost like survival mode where he's waiting for the next thing to, and to worry about.
We added on correcting that. So we were then told, have him on a slip lead in the house, have him on an e-collar always. And basically, if he tries to bite, like physically restrain him or hit 100 on the e-collar until he stops to.
So it's a good point to mention why this doesn't work. And it will work with some dogs who are middle of the road, kind of like, oh my goodness, okay, I'll not do that again. It's not going to make them understand. It can make them confused. It can make them concerned about your, and I'll explain why. Your idiosyncrasies, because you spent, how old was he?
For about a year at this point.
So you spent the first year, or 10 months to get my 8 weeks, convincing him of who you are, and then you go with the heady guns, going, well, now you're gonna get punished.
Oh, and quite a lot of the time I would cry while I was doing it. So he's probably like, what the actual hell is going?
So you've not changed who you are. You've not changed how you're feeling about it. So your emotions are still stress. You're getting upset talking about this.
Sorry, we're just still sober.
And so this is what we're trying to get people to understand on Honest Hounds, isn't it? That it's changing who you are, not just going, well, I'm still this person that's going to let you away with stuff.
But also love me. That's love me.
I got a bit of power here. I'm just going to accept this, but I have no idea why I'm doing this, and I'm not going to change my underlying emotions and my archetype. So my archetype is not protector and guardian. I'm a nurturer. I love you so much. Please don't do this. And the dogs are going to go, fuck you. Well, I just saying that. And the dog's going to go, who the hell do you think you are? I know who you are, but now you've got this magic power tool that's fucking not fair. Yeah. So it's that inconsistency. So we're being really inconsistent. We're going, I'm weak, I'm powerful. I'm weak, but I'm powerful. And that would give me the rage.
Well, absolutely. And I think, yeah, It just was like, we just have to do this thing, and if we do this thing enough, then he'll stop fighting, right? So they did what we're being told. No, it didn't. It got worse. It got so much worse. And why is that? Why did I then see a huge increase? Like, so less outbursts, but when they came, they were
big and angry. Yeah. So that's the suppressed behavior. That's what we worry about with the fallout of this kind of. Thank you. Okay, good. Yeah.
and some others are like, the energy in the room has changed.
So I'm not upset. She's upset. She needs some lover. So, yeah, suppression at its finest is going to be, you can't do this behavior, but underlying emotion hasn't changed. So we're still stressed, we're still worried, we're still hypervigilant about what's going on. And so this is where the trigger stacking happens. I'll cope with it, change. Oh my, I just can't anymore, outburst. And it'll be disproportionate to the thing. So you'll be like, nobody copes with that. Why would that be in it a thing? But that's just the straw that broke the camel's back. So for us, the humans going, this is so illogical. It's out of the blue. I can't understand. But for the dog, it's like, I've coped with so much.
Yeah, I've been telling you this whole time.
Yeah, and then we often see dogs like this, especially from balance training, who, they had these disproportionate outbursts of aggression for little things. And so if you've got a dog that you feel like that's where you're at, like it's not, there's a lot of people that are coming and working with us, especially on the retreats, and they're like, I've got so far, but I feel like there's something missing. And a lot of them have done that kind of, cover over, punish.
Right.
And the training's there, so they feel like they've got the bond and they feel like they've got the relationship because the training's all there.
And the dog does the things you are.
But then every so often the dog will have this big outburst. And basically, I think what I'm seeing is people hold the breath. Yeah, because they go, I instinctively know I'm not quite there yet, but my dog holds it together and he's so good. He's come so far.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, you see a lot of that, right? Like they're walking past the dog and the dog is like, and you're like, come on, watch me, like do this thing, like don't make a bat, let's do this, and all kind of use that control and the obedience to plug in. It's another form of avoidance.
It is actually, yeah. It's just avoidance with a heavy hand.
And I guess this is worth saying, obviously, like we're intentionally not naming names. This is not about individual people. We're not in that world. There's too much drama in the dog training industry. And for every kind of label that there is, there are trainers that sit on a spectrum of that. So actually, balance training in its truest form, having all 4 quadrants and having some boundaries and some like
quadrants.
But we're not saying that there is never a place for telling a dog that is not appropriate behavior, are we? That has to be that element of.
But it's like with kids too, right? Yeah, we can't go through life going, I know that I don't know what I'm talking about. I know that I can't back this up, but I'm just going to keep blackmailing you or threatening you, even though nothing's going to change. And one day I'm going to get really angry and you're going to be super confused because that's not me. And that's when you get the tantrums.
And we see that quite a lot of parents, don't you? Where it's like, if you do that one more time, you're not going to be able to do this thing. And then they're like, but if you do that one more time, you're like, you just said one more time. Now I don't believe you either.
I was at prison this morning and one of the guys really wants a Mali when you get inside. So that's what I'm going to have. So I'm trying my best to, let's say, show it in, but
this taxi
doesn't want a Mali. But so I was doing a bit of training with him with Tristan, and one of the things he did really well, but one of the things that he does is he repeats himself a lot. So he'd say sit, down, 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 down. Yeah. And so I brought it to his attention about 3 or 4 times that he'd repeated. So I would just start saying 5 times he said down, 4 times he said down.
Yeah, I'll just get the attitude.
And he really was learning that it's important not to repeat ourselves, but he wasn't conscious of it. And that's the point. When we're not conscious of what we're doing, we can get ourselves into a little bit of trouble, because the unconscious act the dog's very aware of. So the dog's also counting. The dog's going, I don't have to listen to you until you say it 5 times, and then you get upset because you're at the 5th time you go sit, right? And so we've just put the partnership project out, and one of the things in the partnership project is to ask the question, right? So, can you sit? Hey, Tristan. Oh, the ball. Why? Is that I can do it double.
Yes.
And so then if you ask the question, then what you're doing is, rather than just going, you will do this thing I asked you to do, what you're actually doing is you're going, I'm going to listen to your feedback. Because if you don't, then you're telling me something. You're telling me that I'm not going to be listened to for whatever reason. So I can take that internally and go, maybe I'm not a good trainer or human. Or it could be that, you're uncomfortable just now, or you're not in the mood just now, or that you're distracted by some.
Still trying to be a Mali.
But I really want to love on you.
boy. That's a good.
I also told him that Mali's not affectionate. I lied a little bit.
And you have been evicted. Yeah, once.
To Mali.
Give up, Billy. See ya.
So yeah, the training what we have with our dogs often covers up the real problem because we think, and I think that when you came to me, you were convinced that you had this good bond because of all the training that you had.
Yeah. Because he would do the things that I asked mostly until the stress took over and then we were stuck in our.
I saw that today again with the prisoners. These I probably should just call them service users. But they're not service users. What are they? There's a name for them. I can't remember what it is.
The people you were working with. We'll find out the official terminology for next time.
So I think all prisoners, you have to be careful now. Apparently they can sue. I learned that today as well. They hold fall down calls. They can sue.
Get back on brats.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing when people are training the dog. So they're like, look, he likes me. So they were showing each other, look what I can do. This dog likes me because it's listening to me. And that's really interesting because I've never equated that. The dog is training with me and doing stuff that it likes me. So how do we know when the dog likes us? How do you feel now since you've seen the difference in behavior from Atlas? From, going from I live with you or coexisting to, okay, this dog actually has a relationship with me.
Yeah, I think it's been a gradual shift. Okay. It's quite hard to put into words. It's the really subtle things that change. It's his kind of desire to want to do things with us, or kind of seeking out affection has been a big one for him, because obviously before he was like, I don't want that at all.
Which isn't always the case, for some dogs are naturally sugar.
Yeah, so I guess there's no one size fits all, but I think for me and him, it's that kind of understanding of each other. I'm not having to kind of ask a bunch of times. I kind of feel like I was actually just writing a post on this for Honest Hounds. It's that kind of two-way street for the trust. So I was trying to get him to trust me and like, trust me. Also, I don't trust you at all. Like, trust me, but I'm afraid to touch you and I couldn't possibly ask you to get in a car because I'm not sure what you'll do. Oh, but you should trust me. But also, I can't let you off lead around other dogs, and I don't trust you to make a good decision there. But hello, I'm here and you should trust. Like, it's got to be a two-way thing.
And I deliberately asked that question because I don't think it's an easy answer. I don't think that it's easy to get whether the dog likes you or not. And why should it? It's difficult to get enough from a human whether you like me or not, right? So do we know if Nimbu likes? How do we know?
Nimbu likes turbans out.
So first of all, for him, he didn't want to be touched. So he was very freaked out about being touched. So he's seeking out. So for him, this is I quite like people hang out with you and be close to you. For me, a dog eating and seeking out play and sniffing behaviors. So equating with happiness, like if the dog's happy enough, we should doing natural behaviors to him. And if he's eating, so a lot of the dogs that are chronically stressed are not eating well.
Which happens. And I was one of those where like you tried every food in the book and tried to flick to, oh, we'll try this today, we'll try this week, I'll leave the bowl down on the floor so he can eat when he's hungry. And he just, it was not anything that he was interested in.
So if we disregard whether the dog likes us or not, how does that work? Because people need to be liked?
Yeah. And I'm not going to lie, that is still a journey that I'm on. And even now, like, a year and a half in, I still have to wake up and go, I need to be the version of myself that is what my dog needs, not what I need. And that's hard. And I think, he's kind of more complex than a lot of dogs out there. But yeah, I think it's that, why are you doing it? Is it to serve yourself, or is it actually to give them the best chance and the happiest life? And
it's an important one to contemplate, I think. Do you want to remove that too? That's all you're going to pick up on your sound. And
there are dogs in the podcast room. The van is back in action.
So when I take a dog in for foster or for assessment, it's not important to me whether the dog likes me or not.
Yeah.
It's important to me that he's content, happy, being able to do natural behaviors. That's my priority. It's not about me. And obviously I'm in a very privileged position where I have lots of dogs, so I'm not shy of that affection and companionship.
And I think we hear this a lot with the one dog owners. It's the pressure, right?
It has
It's
to be
my first dog and we're going to do this. And like you say, I'd already established in my head what that dynamic would look like and what our life would be before he existed. And it's like, well, actually, they have personalities and they have characteristics, and that might not be what their love language is.
with yours. Yeah, so get more dogs.
Get more dogs? You have a bladder if you'd like.
Trying to find one that matches your personality type eventually. And yeah, you do have to, like, I change for every one of mine. They all have different requirements, so I'll change according to what's going to make them happy and me happy. And yeah, again, I'm in a privileged position where I've had lots of dogs, so I can appreciate the differences. I think the different characters, and that's part of the fun as well. That, you know, you're never going to get one just like that again. They're not.
Oh, God, I hope so.
They took.
If the world is kind to me, I will not get another dog like Atlas.
And yet at the same time, you have the sweetness after the difficulty, don't you? You've got such a bond with him because of what you've been through.
Yeah, so we should probably get to that point. So we have got to the point where we're trying to punish out the behavior. We're seeing slightly less, so we kind of feel like we're winning because there are less bite incidents. He's able to kind of handle things more.
Is that a year and a half at this point?
I would guess so, yeah. And then when things happen, they are momentous. And so there were kind of a few things that happened, and we were kind of still working with the trainer, and it was just kind of like scale it up. We swapped from, and this is really interesting, right? So we were using the slip lead to correct at first, and then we got to the point that we couldn't get a lead on and off of him. So at one point I was having to wear, it actually just feels like it doesn't feel like my actual life anymore. And I'd kind of go back on these memories. So to get him out of his crate, first I would cry because I didn't want to get him out of his crate. And then I would put on sweatbands so that you wear for the gym to protect my wrists. And then I would put on ski gloves and a puffer jacket. And so I would get him out of his crate to try and put the slip lead on.
No idea.
Yeah, because he would bite if you put the slip lead on. So we got to the point where he's like, well, obviously that's the thing that is causing the discomfort. That thing is not going on me. And so by this point, we had mentioned the muzzle, but I wasn't able to progress to getting on him. If you're having that issue, there is a training guide on Honest Hounds, which will help you with that. It should not be taking you weeks of your life to get a muzzle on your dog. So couldn't get a muzzle on him. Eventually then couldn't really safely get a slip lead on him. I was literally, like, I would feel my heart in my throat just trying to get his lead on to take him for a walk. So it was just, so we then were told to swap to the e-collar to correct, because he could have it on all the time other than when we had to like whip it off to charge it. And so it became like an actual crutch, but also it was like, I'm not even part of this equation anymore, right? So it's so much easier to justify it to yourself because you're going, this feels awful, but it's only a short period of time to get a life back with my dog. So I'll do the thing if it gets him to stop biting, right? All I need to do is have this breakthrough moment where he understands that biting is wrong and he won't do it anymore. Lol. And so it's like, okay, well, literally this is the worst. I hate this. I hate doing it. Everything is just shit about this. But if not, he's going to die. I've already been told by the charity that he's not going to be rehomed. So maybe we'll just do this one thing. And it just wasn't really, obviously, addressing anything.
Well, it's a super interesting part of human nature for me, because you were literally stunned, shocked, and crying over a stick in a dog's mouth last week. And now you're telling me that before I met you, you loved this dog so much, but you put an e-collar on him to punish him, and you knew that was distressing him.
Yeah.
But for you, it was about the bigger picture thing.
Yeah.
So we're going to have lots of people going, not on this, but I mean, and you know, real life away from this, or the same thing. Like, I don't mind hurting the dog.
I did mind. But what else do I do?
If I can get it alive, kind of thing. Which is it's quite distressing to even think about, that people are going through that. But also they're missing the bigger picture where the chronic stress is happening. And I don't even know, right? You don't have to answer this, but my question to myself just now is, would you rather that or heavily medicate the dog? I mean, neither of those are going to work, right? Neither of those are going to work for fixing the underlying issue, but no one's telling you that the underlying issue, right? So you've got the choice of medicate him to make him, he's not just so spaced out he's on the planet, or hurt him so he's not hurting you.
Yeah.
It's a horrific choice.
Well, then I can't answer that question because I tried that one and it didn't work. So what did I do next? I'll medicate the dog. So who knows a good behaviorist? It's just like, I'm laughing. It's not funny. It was literally probably one of the worst moments of my life. But
Anything to try.
anything, even I remember I've got the husband tied to this. So I have a husband with, so you didn't want him with depression. I was pretty well. So what happened is the reason it all came to a head and why I got back on the phone and went, hello, who else have you got? Who else do you know? And is we were starting to try and meet his needs. So I was trying to do research in everything. And so I decided that Canicross would be the thing that would fix everything. So if I could just get him out running more, then he would be fulfilled and happy and he would stop biting us, right? Because we'd bond over the Canicross and then everything would be great. And so, but I couldn't do Canicross because we hadn't been able to get a harness on him since he was tiny and was biting us. So the harness has gone out the window about 5-6 months. I know.
So I'm laughing because you're right. You're such a different person from only a few years ago when you're this, and which is why, of course, you're doing such a great job with the relationship reset sessions that you're doing with people because you understand that as the owner that's been through this. But now you're like, I mean, yeah,
It's a lot. This is what I mean. It doesn't feel like I'm not actually connected to that part of my human body anymore. But there is still,
you were chronically stressed too.
yeah, but there's still a lot of shame and guilt for the things that we did. So I'm not like, there is no element of me that is proud or glad that that happened because
You kept your dog alive.
awful human being.
Well, you kept your dog alive. I mean, you could have been the let's euthanize him or blame everybody else, blame the breeder or whatever situation.
Maybe. So anyway, we were reconditioning the harness and we've been doing really well at having him muzzled. We were muzzling him until we weren't. And then it started to go well. Things had been progressing. He was letting us, you're going to roll your eyes at this. He was letting us kind of put it on him over his head and then off his head, over his head, off his head. So we're doing all the reps, doing all the positives. And then I was like, we've nailed this. This is fine. But the next bit is going to be to clip it up. And he's not going to like that. So rather than going, I'll put a muzzle on him, I was like, oh no, but he doesn't like wearing the muzzle. Therefore, I know, I heard it too. Therefore, if he's wearing the muzzle, he'll be more likely to be upset.
Okay.
Therefore, if he's not wearing the muzzle, he'll be more happy, and he's doing this already. But a little bit of me knew that this was obviously a dangerous situation because I don't feel confident doing this. Hey, Sean, could you do it instead? So I'm obviously reading something and going, this is not going to end well, but not enough to do anything about it. So in this awful, like, watching it from up here moment, I hand the harness over to Sean. Sean sits down and is like, yeah, I'm not worried. Because I'm like, well, I feel nervous now, so he's going to pick up on this. But Sean's like, well, I'm not nervous, so that's fine. I'll do it. So in our second perfect storm incident, Sean goes to put the harness on the dog, goes to clip it up. Atlas freaks out, tries to go bite in the way that he's learned, stay away, don't do that. Naturally, it didn't happen in the way that he bit and then moved himself away because Sean's leg got trapped in the harness. So Sean is then trapped in the harness with Atlas, who's also trapped in the harness, who then goes into absolute meltdown because he cannot get away and proceeds to just go into like this frenzied bite attack onto anything that he can get hold of. Which is just, I was just watching it play out going,
It's chaos.
I don't even know, there was blood everywhere. Sean is then screaming, so Atlas partially severed an tendon in his hand, so then he's got no feeling in his arms. All he's doing is going, I can't feel my arm. And I'm like, oh my god, I've got like, oh, I can't do this. I cannot do this anymore. So we took him to hospital. The arm feeling came back in a couple of weeks, thank God. But that was the bit that made me go, oh, this is not just like some superficial wounds. Like, this dog could actually maim one of us. And at this point, I was a semi-professional athlete. So I'm like, I really need my body to work. Like, this is really important. And so I was just a bit like, I just don't think we can do this anymore. This has been like a year and a half of actual hell on earth. And I think I'm out. I'm out. I'm tired. I'm like beaten down. I'm chronically stressed. I would like to wave the white flag. And Sean is very much like, no.
Well, the other thing is that Sean's worked with children with mental health issues, lots of different problems, so learning difficulties and all sorts. So he's got the back of his mind, and we can talk about this now, although I don't think he was aware of it at the time. Because he's also, going through the stress of having this dog.
Of course.
But his experience is that even working with humans with difficulty can work through things. There's always got to be an answer, something. And so he was like, no, this is
The thing.
So, you're going, no, I'm out. And he's like, we've got to find the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was very much it. And so we spoke to visitor welfare, and they obviously suggested you. And so I'd been back on the online groups trying to get some answers, and the only thing we hadn't tried at this point was medication. And so I was very against it at first because I had bought a very active dog that wanted to run, wanted to explore. I didn't want a dog that was just going to be sedated to the point of I can't bite you because I can't lift my head.
It's often there's a misconception of that the dog suddenly just drugged out of his mind, and certainly I can't work for the dog that's like that.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to learn anything. So I did use medication on that list, but I couldn't when I first got him because I couldn't get near him.
Yeah.
So we were unmedicated for the first 5 days.
So sorry.
So he's 2 years at this point after all this.
Yeah.
And you phoned me.
Yeah.
And then we had that conversation of why is he still alive?
Yep. So I was like, I needed to help me. You had to stay alive. You can heal like great.
You have to become a daunting. And you're like,
Another year. But I guess so we're at the point now where 2 weeks later, my very suppressed, highly stressed Vizsla arrives on your doorstep.
you always turned around.
I did multiple times, yeah, because I was like, well, I don't really want my dog to come and live with you for a month, and if I can't be there to manage the situations, horrible things will happen. It was just, yeah, I think we knew that it was the last chance too. Like Sean had agreed this would be the last thing that we would try, and so there was just so much riding on it and so much emotion that came with it. And
I didn't help because I'm very much like, yeah, we'll see what happens. Whereas you wanted to detail it to your ways. It's going to happen to it of what exactly is going to happen to the minute. And so what are we going to do when we arrive? And I was like, yeah, we'll see what happens. It depends.
it really did depend. So at this point in the journey, in case you fell asleep, we have had avoidance. We have tried to manage things. The management has failed. We've had an increasing number of practice of the aggression and the biting towards humans.
He's very good at it.
Getting really good at it.
So what started with control, and I can get you to stop doing stuff.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I've got a chew or a nice space.
Yeah.
Has now developed into I'm actually getting a kick out of this. I'm enjoying it. I'm actively seeking out situations where I can possess things.
Yeah.
And also don't handle me. Do my own thing over here.
Yeah. And yeah, so we're getting a lot of practice in that behavior. All right, guys. And then we've tried to add in, okay, well, don't do that. Don't do that. Let me correct this. Let me add some punishment because that will stop it. But as you mentioned, not changing any of our characteristics, not thought about who we are, how he sees us, stress, diet, sleep, any of the things. And he arrived as your door.
Adding to this pool of stress to this dog. And I so knew all this. I didn't know exactly what he'd been through. I just knew that you were super stressed and he couldn't be handled, and the dog needs to be handled. Like, it's like number one thing. You want to be a pet dog, you're going to be handled, right? So I'm like, okay, I know he can't be handled. I'm going to touch it. We're going to lean over him. I'm going to push some buttons. And also, I've been practicing, very much working with dogs that have been got hidden bits that are sore.
Yeah.
And owners are not seeing the bits that are twinging. Not that I use that as an excuse. Even if we're in pain, we shouldn't be aggressing. But what's going on with you? And because he was like a little shrimpy, kind of holding himself so tense, so it's naturally going to be bits that were going to be sore.
Yeah.
So the first day that I met you, I went, okay, touching here and touching here. He was like this, don't touch me. And then I lifted his left front leg, and he just went, oh my God, I told you not to touch me. And I went, all right, that's the bit then, that's cool, we'll work on that. And so I'm telling him immediately, because it's the same with Tristan, when he does this little like, who are you? I'm going, my non-reaction to you of not backing away and going, I'm scared.
But also not coming down.
Yeah, I'm not going to punish you. I'm going to go, okay, cool, noted. We're having a conversation between each other. and he's getting to know who I am. And he's not going to like that because he likes humans that go, just leave me alone. Or he did. And in that state, you just want left alone, don't you? Please leave me alone. Whereas I'm not that guy. So yeah, he left him with me for a few weeks, and he wasn't very happy initially. He sat and kind of went, I don't know how to deal with this. No one's speaking my language. But after, and I think that's the big thing about me, that I'm not emotionally pandering in that state. I know that he's safe and warm. I know that he can survive probably a couple of weeks without food.
Which is getting frequent offerings of,
Yeah,
have some food.
I don't ever withhold food from dogs. I always offer it, but it's his choice whether to take it or not. And he went, I'm not eating that food. I'm not. And I knew that he was picky eater anyway, which probably is useful to tell you that he isn't now.
So maybe really anything. It's not
really just chronic stress at that point. And also yours, because he knew then that you would just change it up. Or so again, finding ways for you to do the things. And that's so difficult to say because a lot of people are on that boat where the dog's not eating what it's put down to eat. And that's not dog. Dogs are scavengers. They eat what they eat. So if a dog's picking, that's your first sign, isn't it? That's a sign that something's not right. So yeah, he was difficult. Most dogs after about 2 or 3 days will go, fine, I'll take it from your hand. But he just was like absolutely refusing to cooperate. I had to maneuver him with a catching pole to get him to go out and pee in the garden and so on. And yeah, everything was about safety, to be honest, for me and for him. And that was difficult to work with you because you've got so difficult. You've got social media as well going, oh, it's up with Jess. I'm like, oh God, I didn't really sign up for this. I just want to help the dog.
Sorry.
What if I fail? And obviously I asked you to work with a counsellor, a therapist as well, so that you could work on that, because it's kind of, I'm sorry for equating it to this, but it's kind of like a domestic abuse situation where you're getting hurt by the thing you live with and love.
Yeah, making a lot of excuses.
But you also still want to live with them.
Yeah.
It's really illogical.
Oh, it was. It was just, we just got ourselves in an absolute state that none of us could get out of. But I just felt like he had been really let down by us, by the misinformation that we'd been given. And so I wasn't about to go, well, that's it, sucks to be you, when actually we had got him to that place. It felt like we had to give us every kind of try we had to go, okay, well, if there's insanity in your life, if you're getting what you need, and you're still making those decisions and we still can't overcome that, and great, at least we know we've done everything we can.
It really is important to find somebody to say, does the dog behave differently? And so the dogs that go on the board and train and actually act differently, well, great.
Yeah.
Then we know that it's not the dog. So yeah, and because Atlas was a chronic stress dog, and only people with a severe amount of experience would be able to get through that point, because a lot of people would panic about not eating. There's no way I get medication into him. He and I were not safe without him not muzzled.
Yeah.
So that was a really tricky, and I was stressed about it too, because you don't want the dog not to eat. But at the same time, I've never had a dog not eat. I've never had a dog starve itself.
Yeah.
They always eat. So I knew he would. It was just a matter of him choosing to go, okay, fine. And then as soon as the ice broke, he went, oh yeah, I like that.
Mhm.
Well, I like that too. I like that too. And then we start seeing sniffing and engaging with the others. And that's the other thing. My dogs are really good indicators, so they stayed away from him.
Okay.
So they were like, yeah, we don't want
Well, absolutely not.
that's crazy. And then when he started to become more interested and more kind of coming down from that stress, they'd probably smell it. They were like, yeah, hi, hang out with us.
That's very good.
Side flip. So yeah, story of Atlas.
Oh my God, what a story it is. So I guess if someone's listening to this and going totally overwhelmed, feel like I can relate to either part or all of what's gone on there, where do they begin? What is that next step that you take when you feel like you're not really on track with your dog and maybe things are not aligning? Where to go from there?
And if it's that bad, you've tried all the trainers, then it's probably a bigger, more internal issue than what you think. It's not really a training issue. Obviously, we released the partnership project. I feel like everybody should look at that, and even if you're not having problems, yes, you should look at it. It's about thinking outside of. It's about being human and thinking logically about what happiness is in dogs, trying to relate, trying to come into yourself and go, who am I as part of this equation? What character am I playing? And we're not very self-aware with our dogs. Like to begin with, we've got this idea of what the Hollywood dog is and what we expect from a relationship, and we're doing a huge disservice because we're now bringing these guys in and trusting them into the prison, and they go, oh, I want a Mally, and they're not seeing just how much is going on behind the scenes to keep that dog, and how insane I am, because of all the work that I had to do with them. Like, I don't have any other things going on. It's just dogs.
Yeah, and it is. But I think the thing is that if someone's probably listening to this and they've got to this point, then they're probably really doing the hard work. They're probably putting in the hours. It's probably just maybe not the right stuff. And I think the partnership project
It's
is
not
brilliant
yeah,
for
it's
that.
not about the training. It's about you, how you see things, and even like to the point where we're talking about optimistic and pessimistic. Your outlook is so important for this as well. And obviously, the reason that you're here is because you still had hope. You didn't give up. You were very much like, there's going to be an answer. There's going to be, keep going, find the thing
Yeah.
that's going to work for you. And most importantly, find someone who can take your dog and kind of go, well, let's assess it out of that situation. What's it like? And not everybody's equal. Some people have only had a few years' experience. Some people, not really dealt with.
On the flip side of that is we've got many years of theoretical experience, but maybe not as much handling. So asking those questions, what's your background? How many dogs have you actually physically lived with?
Yeah, and I think nowadays we should maybe be expecting more like a team of trainers that can work with each other. If you've got a single solitary trainer, they're not going to be to bounce off of. Now, one of the things that I've learned on my journey of the last 5 years is in delving into human therapy and counselling, is that therapists have to have what they call supervision. Anybody that works with people in that capacity. And I feel like we've got that in Honest Hounds. We've got the trainers that are working under, being mentored by me. They've got supervision. They can come and they can say, I've got this case. It doesn't quite like sit with the normal.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? And so you've got that reference point of going and talking to the wider group rather than being on your own and going, I think I know what I'm doing. I'll just, the book says that.
The chamber. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So if you listened along and there's been something that's resonated, even if it's one little thing, and we have just launched this great project, there is a link in the bio that I'll pop for you so you can access our download for free. And then a great code that you can access the community for £1 for your whole first month. So maybe there's a little part of you that's still curious, that wants to learn, that wants to see if there's a journey out there that's a little bit different. And it doesn't have to look as extreme as that. Maybe you want to just refine some things, or you think there's a little piece of the puzzle that's still missing for you and your dog. So check it out. Thanks for listening as always, and drop a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts or your experiences, and we'll see you soon.